Stay tuned to the end of the video to hear a word from our sponsor. It's just me. Not many people, musicians especially, have had the opportunity to have the world in the palm of their hand. I'm sure at some level we all want some version of fame, but it's very rare to be so unavoidably in the public eye like Michael Jackson, Taylor Swift, or the Crazy Frog, true icons of their genre. Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, is one of those few. However, rather than cultivating a respected image by releasing quality music and staying in the good graces of the public, he was more concerned with speaking his mind, no matter how insane or questionable, taking his ever-growing legion of fans with him, and just leaving anyone who disagreed behind. At this point, we're all familiar with how much of a polarizing figure he has been over his entire career. He's been no stranger to controversy. I know some of these moments like the back of my hand. You just had to be there.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. It's a hydrogen-powered airplane.
Well, Harriet Tubman never actually freed the slaves. She just had the slaves go work for other white people.
Normally, these would be career-ending controversies for anyone else, but not for him, and I want to touch on that later. If you've been paying attention to him for the past few years, you've probably noticed a strange shift. He's taken this nosedive into the right wing, into the alt-right specifically, that I personally didn't see coming. It wasn't really a secret that he was very openly conservative, but there's a difference between being conservative and being in full support of the worst half of Aberdolf Linkler. There are plenty of conservative musicians, and I'm looking at you, white boy. That in and of itself is a whole nother video. But Kanye's involvement is particularly disturbing, at least in my opinion. From a year-long tirade against the Jewish community to a weird secret religious academy, what I want to focus on in this is his recent actions and the response, or lack thereof, from his fan base. So at the time of recording this, Kanye is in the middle of the rollout for his new album, Vultures, which is set to release in a few days. It's supposedly a collab album with longtime collaborator Ty Dolla $ign. One look at the imagery surrounding this album, and you could already get the sense that this is weirder and frankly more disturbing than his other albums. The guy made a whole album basically gaslighting everybody into thinking his wife was trying to steal his kids away from him while simultaneously manipulating her to come back. So right off the bat, you're in for something mind-boggling. On December 8th of 2023, Ty Dolla $ign posted a track list for this album. Very quickly, people noticed this eagle symbol that closely resembles the German coat of arms, specifically a dual-headed variation of the one used by the Bundesrat. I can already hear some of the comments, if there are any, which I doubt there will be. Oh, maybe it's a coincidence. Germany doesn't own the concept of an eagle and a shield. Maybe, but I don't think this is a coincidence. This is a little too, they're not exactly the same, but there's enough similarities to make it directly inspired by the coat of arms. When you look at the front cover, it becomes undeniable that Kanye is doubling down on his alt-right influences. The cover art uses an 1835 painting by Caspar David Friedrich, a German artist whose work has famously been used by black metal artist and proud neo-Nazi Varg Vikernes of Burzum. Coincidence?
I think not!
Definitely not. And that's just the art. We haven't even gotten to the music part of it yet. On December 12th, Kanye had a listening party for the new album in Miami, and
Anti-Semitic, I just the Jewish.
If you don't see it by now, I'm sorry. There's no way that anyone can explain it to you, because how do you miss the 1936 Olympic-sized red flag that this is? How did we go from this to this?
One in a pink, one in a stink.
I watched that like 6 times, and I still, what the hell was that? That one gave me flashbacks. If you know, you know. I'd take a water break. Drink your water.
This is a tasty
water. This part of the controversy I find particularly interesting because it might come as a surprise, but this is not the first time that he has done this. In the music video for Black Skinhead off the 2013 album Yeezus, he actually did the exact same thing. Now, whether or not he was physically wearing it or if it was like a digital overlay, it doesn't matter. He was still doing it. But at least in the context of the music video, he's sort of reclaiming imagery associated with the alt-right and sort of using it as a way to say, I'm going to tear the whole system down, and this is a warning to anyone that subscribes to those ideals. We've got the hood and the dogs and the lyrics specifically. That's still how I perceive it, but I can't help but feel that retroactively it becomes a little weird. At the very least, it becomes confusing and contrarian, and at very worst, it becomes problematic, especially given this album's rollout. It was incredibly controversial at the time, but I feel like it's becoming something else entirely, whether or not intentional or, weird coincidence. I don't know. And this is the top comment on that video while I was researching this. So, I just want everyone else to see that. In my opinion, ever since the love speech tweet and the interviews with Drink Champs and Alec Jones, I think it's pretty obvious where Kanye stands politically, regardless of how his PR people make him backpedal. But speaking of that, they didn't even try very hard. His apology was written in Hebrew and most likely by AI. So there's that. Notice how he says your forgiveness is very important to me. I understand the sentiment, but the goal of any sincere apology should be to let the affected parties know how deeply remorseful you are for your actions, not just getting forgiveness so you can go back to doing what you're doing, which he did very quickly. If he actually meant what he said, which he probably didn't even say to begin with, he wouldn't still be wearing a Burzum t-shirt in public. There's been an update. The album dropped. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to come out at all, honestly. I thought this was going to be another Yandhi or a Donda 2 situation, but no.
You said the album was coming out on Saturday. It didn't come out. What happened?
I didn't finish it.
He dropped it, and it's just as bad as I thought it was going to be. Looking at some of the lyrics here, it is even more apparent that he really didn't mean his apology in any sense. Like, the classics are here, like on Vultures. He can't be anti-Semitic because he had sex with a Jewish person, which literally doesn't make any sense. But then you have others now we can add to our collection. Racist lyrics.
Will make a fine addition to my
archive of shit. On the song Stars, he says he keeps a few Jews on the staff now. What is the point of saying this? I really don't know. There's no reason to point that out, because if it's true and he actually has hired some Jewish staff members, it would only be because he feels guilty for what he said. He has no real intention of adding diversity to his staff to have a diverse staff, just to make himself look better. And then on the song Problematic, who would have guessed he's being problematic, saying, I'm not racist, it's a preference, and my looking like a reference. I didn't interpret this in any specific way because reading the other lyrics, there's not really any context clues as to what he could be talking about. Maybe just saying he prefers a certain race of women when he's having sexual relations. But then I clicked the anecdotes, which are mostly fan-made. These aren't validated. It says he doesn't like Jewish doctors. I don't know why the fan thought that this was the correct interpretation. He says it's one of two, but like, I just assumed it was about his sexual preference. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with his fan base regurgitating this stuff. Because where does he say anything about Jewish doctors?
The thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, which was misdiagnosed by I'm not gonna say what race, what people, doctor and what hospital and what media it went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
So before the album dropped, I believe the night before, he ended up having another listening party in Chicago. When I was trying to find clips from this live stream before any had been posted, I found a YouTuber who I assume was streaming it. I was just skimming through to see if there were any clips, and the part that I skipped to, he claimed that the stream was cut off after Kanye called himself a crazy bipolar anti-Semite. And I was like, well, that's wild. We'll have to see that. And then the next day, that claim was confirmed. And when the album came out, there's the lyric right there. He seems to be quoting the articles and the videos that are being made about him and using the terms that they're calling him. But this just doesn't make sense to me because it's in quotes, and I didn't listen to any of this because I'm not giving him any streams, so I'm not even going to hear what it sounds like in the context of the song. But just from reading it with the quotes around it, I'm assuming he's trying to be like, they're calling me this, they're calling me that. But he's just kind of accepting it. Like, if you look at the lyrics, he's like, yeah, that's what I am, and I don't care. Like, awesome. Thank you for clarifying. In case you had any doubt, here you go. The man himself is just saying it. After the apologies, after all the blunders, he's just straight up admitting it. One of the things that bothers me the most is the fact that his daughter North has been included very heavily in this album's rollout, and I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with including your kids in your work.
I'm going to my house, seeing my dad.
I just think, given this album's content, it's extremely inappropriate. Like in the past, his daughter's been in his fashion shows, but this is kind of weird, and, I find this really disgusting. Like, I was skimming through the lyrics trying to find any, gold nuggets. 80% of the songs are all about sex, or have mostly sexual lyrics. That's really gross, personally, when your daughter is on the album, not just around you while you're performing it. She's literally on the album, and you have other rappers rapping about women like they're objects, and rapping about them like they have no personal autonomy, and they're, there for their sexual gratification. One, that sends a bad message to your own daughter, but two, that's just a weird thing for a kid to be around.
Beautiful big titty butt naked women just don't fall out the sky,
Especially given the racist and anti-Semitic remarks. Now you're gonna add demeaning of women to the list. And I think the most ironic part about this is that conservatives are the ones who claim to want to protect the children the most. They make all this hoopla, and then they end up being the ones putting kids in weird and gross situations. So anyway, while I was editing this video, we had this little update, and I just wanted to add this in because I think it's very important. Also, Private Jet mentioned Taylor Swift, Eat Your Heart Out. As if we didn't have enough of a bigotry problem in hip-hop, with rampant homophobia, transphobia, sexism, misogynistic double standards, now we have the most revered figure in the space openly subscribing to these ass-backwards ideals.
I got liposuction.
Given what Kanye has been doing, it's not hard to imagine that there's been a lot of discussion within his fan base about what it means, or where they go from here, or what they do from here on out. People are conflicted about this once beloved artist whose music means so much to so many. One look at his subreddit and it's clear. I looked at it and it literally destroyed my faith in humanity's ability to critically think. I promise you, I was digging. I had my hands on the shovel. I did not find anything. I did not find a single rational post. I did not see a single reasonable anything. No thoughts behind those eyes. I did find this gem though, so that's something. Being a Kanye fan right now is a constant battle. It's a full-blown sport at this point, because the mental gymnastics you have to perform are equivalent to Simone Biles at her peak. I challenge you to go to any Instagram post, any TikTok or YouTube video related to Kanye and find a single normal comment. I guarantee you there will be truckloads of his fans coming in. Go ahead, dump it right there. Yep, right there. Go ahead, back it up, dump it right. Yep. Over half of the comments will be some mindless explanation for why what he's doing is okay. They rush to defend him like it's their job. They are clocked in. They are competing with the Swifties and the Barbs for the most copium ingested by a single fan base. Defending your favorite artist isn't always inherently a bad thing, especially given the fact that we live in a world of misinformation and AI posts and deepfakes and all that kind of stuff. But this is a strange new level of ignorance and mindless parroting that isn't just isolated to his community. This is more than just some single sweaty clout-chasing echo chamber. Now, calling him a cult leader might be a bit extreme, but in my opinion, he kind of fits the definition. Kanye, a hugely iconic and influential person who never hesitated to let us know what he thought of his own intelligence, embracing the ideology and figureheads within Nazism and the alt-right only leads to one outcome, and we're seeing that right now. I myself used to listen to a lot of his music when I was younger, and I was also on the internet when I was 13, so I understand the impact that an idol can have on your ideology. Case in point, Filthy Frank, and iDubbbz. They're some of the most prolific examples of public figures when it comes to young boys going down the alt-right pipeline. So if you just change a niche internet celebrity to a huge iconic mainstream musician, I can only imagine the amount of younger fans who are just consuming what he is saying without giving it a second thought. They most likely don't have enough lived experience to know that this is disgusting behavior. They're literally being groomed into this pipeline. And then you have people like Aiden Ross and
I Show Speed,
who have audiences primarily of young boys and teenagers streaming the event for those young boys and teenagers. I guarantee you the average Aiden Ross viewer doesn't understand the full gravity of this situation. What Kanye is potentially doing, whether he understands it or not, is turning a lot of his young fans into misinformation zombies who will just recite whatever mindless nonsense he's spewing that week. Not to mention those who already held those beliefs now have a more open space where they can practice them without shame, especially when it comes to anti-Semitism and anti-blackness. A huge celebrity is acting as a de facto leader for their disgusting and violent ideals in an era where the alt-right is making an unprecedented comeback in the face of much needed and necessary adversity. And just a side note, if you need a white Canadian guy pretending to be American, appropriating a black art form, spitting your alt-right ideas back into your face, you are the problem. Facts, man. Facts don't care about your feelings. Take that, liberals. What's really frustrating to me is despite all the necessary backlash, Kanye still had his biggest streaming year ever in 2023. Even after everyone with a shred of sensibility stopped listening, it clearly didn't matter as the wave of true fans overwhelmed. So along with the graduation comments, I see a lot of people online saying that we need to separate the art from the artist. Let Kanye the individual and Kanye's music stand apart. Immediately, this argument falls apart. The separation of art and an artist is a very complicated thing, especially since there's so many forms of art, each one having a different relationship with the artist and many nuances to a situation in which an artist may come into question, not to mention the type of controversy that they could be involved with. So I'm gonna put this in my lap here, so I can use my hands to get my point across. This situation is less Jonathan Majors movies and his alleged assault, and more J.K. Rowling's books and her intense transphobia and racism. Was my visual guide helpful? Obviously, every case is different. Musicians, their art is almost entirely their own, and it usually comes from personal lived experiences and beliefs. Kanye and his music have always been inseparable. Literally nobody else could make exactly what he makes but him. It's always been at the forefront of controversy because of his own actions and statements. This argument is just one of the many last-ditch efforts his fan base is using to hold on to the remnant of what they love so dearly. Or like I said earlier, the new figurehead for their beliefs. There is a case to be made, however, for the artist working with Kanye. At the time of writing and recording this video, at least according to my research, nobody he is working with on this new album has said or done anything in line with his own personal statements and actions, although a few of them have their own controversies. I personally don't think this absolves them from criticism or cancellation. In fact, I think the opposite is true. Regardless of how they feel about his beliefs, being a part of the production of any new music is going to reflect poorly on you as a musician. They might not be tweeting Star of David swastika mashups, but the lack of statements from any of these artists condemning his actions is very damning, as if actively being there wasn't bad enough. Now, I'm not one to idolize celebrities, but it is incredibly disappointing to see people like Freddie Gibbs and Kid Cudi inadvertently or not enabling this behavior. The most baffling and infuriating is the most recent, which is JPEG Mafia, the self-proclaimed alt-right menace. Other than the usual collaborators of Kanye's, the ones who have only worked with him a few times seem to be kind of ignorant to the damage or intentionally casting it to the side to get a chance to work with him, specifically JPEG Mafia. He made statements on Twitter that kind of muddy the waters as to where he stands, as he seems to be separating himself from Kanye's views, but also shamelessly admitting he still just wanted to work with him. I understand his points about being annoyed at the super redditors who are calling him a Nazi, which I wouldn't go as far as to say that he is, but I do think a case could be made that he undermined his own message just to get a chance to work with Kanye. It's weird given the many public comments and lyrics he has targeted specifically towards the alt-right and musicians who embrace these ideals. The real irony, for me, comes from the opening line of Peggy's song, "I Cannot Wait Until Morrissey Dies," as it's literally a direct attack on Varg, the singer of Burzum. And when JPEG Mafia was seen with Kanye, Kanye was wearing a Burzum t-shirt.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
Now, it's been true for years that Kanye has been surrounded by yes men, which is definitely having an influence on his behavior. But these artists have the platform to stand up against this behavior, and they're choosing not to, whether it's out of fear of losing their career, or losing popularity, or just plain ignorance. Either way, it's not a good look, and if you stand in support of the Jewish community, your support for these artists should probably be in question. Now, Kanye's mental health undeniably plays a role in his behavior as of late. He's been publicly struggling with bipolar disorder for many years now. I'm sure there's a case to be made for narcissism, and he recently made comments about how he thinks he might be on the autism spectrum.
Wait, I am not bipolar. I'm not in some kind of episode, but I may be slightly autistic.
But these claims haven't been validated as of right now. I'm sure my fellow Spectrum Wireless members can agree that being autistic doesn't excuse being a Nazi. When it comes to a mental health crisis, it's important to give the person in crisis the support that they need and direct them towards things that could give them help, which I'm sure people have tried to do. It's apparent at this point that Kanye is either unwilling or he just doesn't have enough people in his physical circle to get him the help that he needs. While this certainly doesn't make his actions acceptable, anything but, it certainly gives us a base for where these ideas may be coming from. I worry that if gone unchecked, he will continue to go further and further down this pipeline, taking more impressionable, gullible people with him to recite nonsense like Jewish people run the world, or slavery was a choice, or things like that that make literally no sense and have no basis in reality. Ultimately, Kanye's last few years have destroyed his reputation with the mainstream public and caused a huge divide in the music and hip-hop spaces specifically. Whether you agree with him politically or not, which you shouldn't, it's undeniable that he's never going to be held in the same light again. I think we need to take this opportunity to use him as an example of how far this alt-right behavior and acceptance will get you, which is about 2 feet forward before you realize you're about to fall Wile E. Coyote style into the bottomless pit of irrelevance. His fans need to do better, start critically thinking, and stop enabling a man who clearly doesn't understand or care about the impact that these actions have, especially in our current climate. What do you think about what's going on right now? I'm curious to hear what you think. Is he being weird? Are musicians doing enough to speak out against this kind of stuff? I'd love to continue this discussion, so please let me know what you think. I probably have no energy in this. This is a great first impression. So, yeah, that's about all I've got to say about that. So I originally wanted to do a larger video on the topic of separating the art from the artist as a whole, and I was going through categories of movies, physical art, and music, with Kanye being my example for that, and I realized that he kind of stands out in the sense that, yes, there are bad people in every art form that exists, especially given what's happening recently and the fact that his album's set to come out, which I doubt it will. I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit more because it bothers me in a way that it's hard to describe, because you've got people like, I don't even remember their names, so you just put them behind me. These people who are actively Zionists, people who are so actively speaking in support of Israel. But when it comes to music, I don't want to say that it's different, but there's something else about it that I feel like only Kanye has the power to influence. I feel like if, say, Drake, for some reason, came out tomorrow and spoke out in support of Israel or Hitler or whoever, it wouldn't have the same effect that Kanye has, because Drake is not necessarily associated with being a polarizing figure and having controversy, except the Millie Bobby Brown stuff. Speaking of stranger things have happened. I just feel like it wouldn't be the same. I feel like this is unique to Kanye. I can't imagine if Ice Spice decided that she was standing in support of the Nazis, that she would be getting the same support that Kanye is getting. So hopefully this opened your eyes a little bit and maybe put into perspective the way celebrities have an impact on our politics and the way people think. So if you stuck around, congratulations. You win a prize. Here it is. Me talking about myself. This is the first video on this channel, at least, so I feel like I should probably properly introduce myself. Hi, my name is Grady. I'm a musician, producer, filmographer, editor, and professional Fortnite addict. Aww. I've been releasing music under the name Immature Intelligence for about 4 years at this point. If it wasn't obvious, I made every song in this video that was labeled as mine. I haven't released anything in a while, but I hope now that I'm formally getting my foot in the door that I can consistently put stuff out, but that's gonna kind of take a back seat, especially since I would like to do this more. But I've got a pretty big backlog that I'm able to consistently put out, especially if people, start to pay attention. I made some music videos in the past few years that you can go check out if you want to support these excellent artists. Shout out Alan, love you. Shout out Feverton. The video I made for you is not good. I also do work on a D&D podcast called Naturally One. If you're into that, please check it out. Good podcast. I have a lot of fun doing that. I've wanted to get back into making videos for almost as long as I've been putting out music, and my goal with this is to kind of focus on popular culture and politics and how they influence our lives, but I also want to do more lighthearted things. Either way, whatever it is, I'll be putting my absolute best into them, and I really hope it shows. So if you genuinely enjoyed this, I started a Patreon. If you would like to support me there, that's linked below. It's just $1, and with that, you get access to early videos, music. I'll probably be uploading bloopers of every video, and any and all money I get from there will go straight back into this because I would like to make them better. As you can see, I'm using my phone as a microphone because in Logitech, bro, I hate you. This is a targeted attack. God forbid I buy a microphone 6 years ago and I can't use it anymore because you don't let people download the software that you need in order to use the microphone. I hate you. Whoever CEO of Logitech. Number one on my list of people I'd like to throw a hot dog at. Covered in mustard and relish, by the way. But anyway, if you feel like donating, that would be incredible. I'd really appreciate it. Like I said, my goal is to make things better and hopefully use the channel as a tool for good and education. And if you made it this far, like I said, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me because I know this is probably kind of an awkward video to sit through. It's 3 a.m. right now, and I am not putting the energy into it that I thought the script was going to allow me to. I was very disheartened by a lot of the technology-related blunders I had to deal with. I thought I could bang this out in about an hour, and it's been 3. So in the meantime, here's all the social media that I use. You can find me there. If you like short form content, if you're really that brain rotted, go ahead and watch that. We can really just deepen that parasocial relationship because at the end of the day, that's my goal. Also, real quick before I go, I just want to shout out my beautiful partner for catching me in the act of finishing the script while I was on the toilet. Yep. Love you for that. I'm using weights to hold the green screen down tight, so now I'm just going to lift weights while the credits are rolling, or the end tag, or whatever you want to call it. I don't lift weights, by the way. I just have them. So watch me struggle to lift a 10-pound weight. Okay.